comparing and contrasting. If you rewind your brain back all the way to Christmas time, we practice comparing and contrasting with all of our different gingerbread stories. Remember, we read the gingerbread boy, the gingerbread girl, the baby, and we talked about and made that journal discussing all the things that were the same when we compare and all of the things that were different in the stories when we contrast. So we're going to review that today. When we have the word compare, remember it's talking about how are they alike. With our gingerbread stories, we talked about, did they run away from the fox? Were they eaten by the fox? How are they alike? How are those stories the same? And then when we use the word contrast, we're talking about how are they different. Not all of the gingerbread men were eaten by the fox. Not all of them ran away. There were different endings and different situations that happened in their stories. So comparing, meaning how are they alike, and contrasting, meaning how are they different. So we're going to look at that and talk about that a little bit more today. Now today is Wednesday, which means it is Writing Wednesday. So we're going to do a writing activity today using comparing and contrasting for our Writing Wednesday. So up here on the board, I have this chart, and this chart is called a Venn diagram. So we've used these maybe once or twice before, but let me remind you how we're going to use this. So we basically take two really big circles and we cross them over on top of each other. So we have one circle here and one circle here. What you're going to use, you can make one of these circles at home on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. And you're going to choose two different objects at home. It could be two different people. It could be two different things you hold. I suggest you think about two different things that you can see or feel or touch because it helps us to better compare and contrast them. And we're going to be putting them on the two different sides. So today, I have two objects. I have a beach ball and I have an apple. Now we're going to be comparing and contrasting. I chose these two different objects. You can choose whatever two objects you want at home. So maybe you go pause this, go look around the house and find two objects that you want to write your story about today, comparing and contrasting. So I have these two objects. I'm going to start with my apple. I'm going to put my beach ball down to the side. I'm going to take my apple and with my Venn diagram, I'm going to write an apple on this side at the top. And I'm going to write three different things down to describe this apple and making sure they're different than how I would describe my beach ball. So my apple is food. It is something that I eat. So I'm going to write under apple, I'm going to write food. Things that are different. We're going to contrast. And then in the middle, we'll compare how they're the same. So it is food. My apple is red. Okay, most of my apples are red. There's a little bit of yellow there, but I'm going to write red as the color of what it looks like. It is red. And my apple is also small. If it's right in my hand, it's not huge. Okay, it's a small apple, so I'm going to write small. So here are three words to describe how my apple is different as I contrast it to my beach ball. Now I'm going to pick up my beach ball. See on my apple? I'm going to look at my beach ball. My beach ball is not food. You don't eat it. It is something that you play with. We don't play with an apple. We eat our apple. So a beach ball is something that you play with. So that's one of the things on this side. I'm going to write on here, I'm going to write beach ball at the top. So we have this over here. We have our apple over here with our describing word. So beach ball is something that you play with. Okay? Our beach bowls, look at the colors on it. It's not red like my apple, it's green and white. So look at what it looks like. So I'm going to write green and white under my beach ball side. Green, I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to also write white. Let's see what else. My beach ball is much bigger than my apple. So I said my apple was small. My beach ball's not very small, it's a lot bigger. So I'm gonna write big, because my beach ball is big compared to the size of my apple. So I'm going to write big. So I have 1, 2, 3 things to describe my apple, and I have 1, 2, 3 things to describe my beach ball. They're contrasting different ideas. Now, we are going to compare them. I'm going to hold them both up. Looking at both of these, they have a similar shape. One is bigger, one is smaller, but they are similar in the fact that they are both round. They have rounded edges. One is not a square or a rectangle. Now this is more of a circle than this one, but they're both round. So comparing them, we're going to write in the middle area where our circles overlap that they are round. And that's one of them I'm going to write. Now something else, as I'm thinking about, if I took these two things and dropped them in my pool. I went outside, went to my pool, and dropped both of these in my pool, you'll find out that they're both going to float. So comparing the two objects, my apple is heavier than my beach ball, but it will still float in the pool. So comparing them, something that is similar to how they are alike is that they will both float. So I'm going to have these two different things in the middle telling me how they are alike, comparing them, and then on the sides I have different ideas telling me how they are different, how they contrast. So today, using your two different objects you have at home, I want you to do that. I want you to use our different transition words as you write a story, telling me what first, next, then, and last. I have a quick example I'm going to pull up to show you to help you kind of format that writing. Okay, so here you see on my board, this is how you can set up your paper as you start your Writing Wednesday story. So that first sentence, tell me what your two objects are that you chose. Maybe they're two different people. Maybe you want to compare and contrast mom and dad, or you and brother or sister. You get to pick any two objects at home. Tell me what those two objects are, and then we have our transition words. First, next, then, and last. This is a way that it can help you to focus your writing. First, tell me something contrasting. Tell me one way they are different. Next, tell me another way that they are different. On the first two sentences, I want you to contrast. The next two sentences, I want you to compare. Tell me two different ways that they are similar, that they are the same. I want you to remember with your writing, boys and girls, to remember those capitals. Remember those periods. Remember to keep your letters on the lines and in the right spaces. Remember those finger spaces between your words. All of those different things will help you to become a better writer as we continue to practice this. So remember that today. Before we end our lesson, I want to think about some different people in our Bible. So you can choose to use different people in our Bible today if you want to compare and contrast. I think about two different people we've talked about. I think about Jonah and I think about Moses. God came to both of these different people and told them to do something. God came to Moses and he said, I want you to go to Egypt to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. God told Jonah, I want you to go to Nineveh and tell all of these people about me because they're not choosing to listen and obey. So something that is comparing, that is similar, is God gives them both a command. But in contrasting, Moses said, yes, I'm going to go and talk to Pharaoh and tell him to let the Israelites go. But Jonah said no. And we know how that story ends. Jonah said, no, God, I don't want to do that. That's too much. And he went and left and went on a boat for another direction. And we know he ended up in the belly of a fish. So there are different things in our lives, how God has orchestrated that are similar and different, like we're comparing, and there are things that are different as we contrast. All right, boys and girls, I cannot wait to read your stories to see what you have written about comparing and contrasting with our Writing Wednesdays. We'll see you later.